Hi, I'm Mike Turner, your friendly filmmaker, and today we're answering a viewer question about the JVC GY-LS300. Now, our friend here, his name is Ofer, is shooting a film in a forest, and he's using the LS300, and he's going to be shooting at night, so it's going to be dark, and he's just wondering what my settings are on my camera in terms of color profiles, you know, my levels, master black, and all that stuff. Like, what do I use? So we'll go through that. And he's also going to be using the 12 to 35 f2.8 lens, the 35 to 100 f2.8 lens, the 42.5 f1.2, and he's going to be shooting the film with those. So let's just kind of get into that real quick, and we'll start with the lenses. And it's funny that you asked about this, because I was actually going to make a video about the 35 to 100 f2.8 because I've owned this for a while, and I just never made the video. But now let's talk about this lens. So my feelings on this lens is, you know, great image stabilization, very nice picture when there's enough light, especially if you're shooting stills. Really nice stills lens for portraits and stuff. For video work, when you're shooting low light, I just find like it's not adequate at all. Like the f2.8 is not really like f2.8 because it's micro four thirds. So it's like you're probably not getting as much light as you would get from some type of f2.8 lens on like a full frame camera. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, of course, you are using it with a 35, a super 35 sensor. So it probably is a little brighter than it would be like on a GH5 or something. Maybe, but to me, when I was using it with this camera, I was pretty disappointed in how it handled low light situations, to the point where I just never bring it to weddings anymore because I just don't think it does a great job. That's just my feelings on it, and also it has a very kind of far focusing distance, so you gotta have your subject has to be at least 3 feet away to be in focus. And that was a problem when I was shooting a wedding. I was shooting a first dance. There was a circle around the bride and the groom. I had to get inside the circle, so the bride and the groom were pretty close to me. And as they're dancing back and forth, moving in and out, they kept going out of focus, and I couldn't do anything about it. I was crippled by this lens, and it's all that I had on my camera at that time, and I could not stop the first dance and say, hey, I gotta get a different lens. I gotta go to my bag. Ain't nobody trying to hear that. So it didn't really screw me up too much. I had another camera on the tripod, blah, blah, blah. I just kind of jumped between the shots, and it looks good, but still, it could have really messed me up if that was my only camera. So yeah, not in love with this lens. It will be for sale on www.mediahammock.com/used, so you guys can go ahead and check that. And of course, let me just say before I move forward, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. I do things like this all the time where I answer viewer questions. And of course, I review equipment like this lens and this camera and whatever else. So now you also mentioned the 12 to 35 f2.8, which I think would suffer the same problems as this one, where it's really not that bright. So depending on how you're lighting the scene at the forest, it might be a moot point. It might not even matter. You might be fine because you might be lighting things up anyway, and these lenses might serve you well. So that might not be an issue. But if you're planning to like not light things well because you want to have that dark, spooky thing in the forest, I don't really know what your film's about. I don't know if these lenses are going to be adequate for that. That's just my opinion. Me personally, and I'm just going to mention this real quick. I'm not saying that you have to do this, but I'm just going to mention it. When I shoot weddings, I use this Nikon speed booster. It's a Metabone speed booster, Nikon to micro four thirds. And I use these Nikon AIS lenses. AIS, I'm not sure which one it is. But I have a 50 1.4 and I have a 28 millimeter f2, and then I also have an 85 millimeter f1.8. And I rarely ever use the 85 millimeter, but I typically always use the 50 and the 28. And with that speed booster, the low light performance is incredible with this camera. I love the combination of those lenses with this camera. Sharp picture, great colors, great low light performance. It's wonderful. Just mentioning that. Your 42.5 millimeter f1.2 I know is going to do well for what you're talking about. That's going to be fine. if I were you, maybe, go out there, test it out first, test out all 3 lenses and see if they give you what you want. I would be surprised if if the 2 zoom lenses give you what you want. You might have to go ahead and maybe invest in another wide prime that is also fast, like your 42.5 millimeter. I think they have the 17 millimeter f1.7 Panasonic lens. Since you seem to like the Panasonic lenses, that's fine. Maybe try to use that one instead, because I think that one's pretty cheap too. So I think it's 17. I'll put it down below. I'll put the link down below, but you can check that out. Maybe that might be better for what you're doing. As far as my settings, let's just go into what I shoot with. I do -4 with the detail. I feel like the detail on the camera is like too excessive, so I like to bring that down quite a bit. Everything else, even this is all subjective. It's all on how you like things to look, but I don't like it to look so sharp, so I take the detail down. Master Black, I bring down a -4 just to give it a little more contrast. Black paint, I have messed with this before, and for a while I had this adjusted to a different setting, and I do believe it's in one of my videos. I did a video about AW paint, if you look that up, and I think it kind of shows you what I set that to. So I don't remember it off the top of my head, but if you watch that video, I'll put a link to it. You could check that out and see what I changed that to. And basically the reason I mess with the black paint is because it will modify the color a bit, and I find the colors that come out of the JVC are kind of yellowish and greenish. So I modify that a little bit and that corrects it. I don't really touch the black toe. I leave that. Leave the needle auto, sensitivity fast, 108%. I don't change any of that. The gamma, I leave in 709. I don't really use J-Log or Cinema. Cinema will make it like a little flatter. J-Log obviously is going to make it really flat. But J-Log is funny because if you don't expose like 100% properly, you're going to get a lot of noise in the shadows. And I just find like even when you do expose right, you still get some noise in the shadows that I just don't really like. So I typically don't shoot in J-Log much with this camera. That might be because it's 8-bit. The level, I do +3. That kind of boosts the mid exposure and kind of brightens your image just a little bit without pushing it so much that it's starting to look noisy. So that's what I do. So I think that's normally at 0. YDR I leave off. That's wide dynamic range, which it really does. It helps a little bit. I've played with the settings before, but it's so like minor that it doesn't even make sense to even use it, in my opinion. Color matrix I leave at 709. You do have other options in here, but I've tried them. I don't really like Cinema Vivid. I just leave it at 709. I find that it's fine in 709, so I don't really mess with it. The adjust here, you could go in here and mess with the individual colors too, to your liking. I would hook up like an external monitor or something and then start playing with it to get it where you want. But I just leave it, it's all on the standard settings. I've messed with that before and I have achieved some results that I did like, but I just leave it alone. I find like if I leave that alone and just simply mess with this color gain a little bit, I just bring it down a little bit because to me it's a little oversaturated out of the camera, your image. So I just bring the color gain down and that's where it is. So I mean the main things that I'm changing here, color gain I bring down a little bit. Like I said, the gamma level I bring up a little bit, and the detail in the Master Black, I changed those too. Hopefully that helps you out. And yeah, thanks for your question. It's a great question. Hopefully there's some other people out there that it can help as well. Like I said, to everybody out there looking for used equipment, www.mediahammock.com/used. Check it out. There might be something on there that you need. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel because I do things like this all the time. Talk about equipment, answer questions, all that good stuff. As always, I'm Mike Turner. Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you soon.